Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July joint meeting of the Power Authority and Canal Corporation. We're pleased that you've taken some time to join us this morning. I'm John Cole, and again have the opportunity to chair this meeting. I'm joined by my fellow trustees, Gonzalez and Trainer, and very pleased to be joined by 4 new trustees joining us for the first time today. Lewis Warren, Mike Cusick, Lori Wheelock, and Cecily Morris. So welcome, team. We're proud to have you, and thank you for your willingness to serve and contribute to the great work that, as you'll hear in the months ahead, the organization continues to do. As always, with us as well today are Justin Driscoll, our president and CEO, and the beginnings of his team, where we'll assemble as we progress through the session. This meeting, as always, was duly noticed as required by open meetings law, and hence I formally call the meeting to order. We've all had the opportunity to review the agenda in advance, and unless there's any recommendations for changes to that agenda, I'd ask for a motion to adopt it as presented. Moved. Second. Thank you very much. Lewis, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We've also had a chance to review the contractor listing and ensure there's no conflicts. I know everyone's responded unless anyone has any other late breaking changes or information. Terrific. As we typically do, we will start this meeting in exec session. We've got a full agenda, a bit of a mid-year report, strategically where we are from a risk management standpoint, our financial story, and some significant operating initiatives. But as I said, we will start an exec session. So if I could, I'd ask for a motion to conduct such a session pursuant to Section 105 of the Public Officers Law. So moved. Seconded. Thank you, B and Dennis. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We'll adjourn to open session. Thank you. To closed session. Thank you. Welcome back. If I could ask for a motion to resume the meeting in open session. Second? Second. All right. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're back in session. And as always, no votes were taken during executive session. As indicated, we've got a full agenda, mid-year review and update. Start with a strategic drive-by. Justin and Yves will navigate that for us. Adam will catch us up on where we stand financially, middle of the year. Tom will give us a nice drive-by from a risk management perspective, and then Joe will report from North Carolina on the status of our operating matters and a few other items before we close. So thrilled to have the full team and a full room. So Justin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, everyone. Morning, trustees, fellow NYPA staff, members of the public. Great to be here with you today with a fully constituted 7-person board of trustees and board of directors. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be here with you today at this sort of midpoint in 2023. I think it may be one of the most pivotal moments in the Power Authority's history as we sit here today, with all the work that we have ahead of us and the additional work that's been sent our way and the vote of confidence that the governor and the legislature has given us in terms of an additional grant of authority. So what I thought I might do is just, because we are at the half-year point, maybe mention a few accomplishments in the first half of the year, and then talk a little bit about where we're headed for the rest of the year. So, if you look at the transmission system, which we obviously are very proud of, and I know you've seen this slide before, but we continue to be the largest owner and operator of the high voltage transmission system in the state. The slide depicts the colored lines being the NYPA lines and the gray lines being lines owned by other transmission owners. But you can see that we continue to serve as the backbone of the high voltage grid in the state. And everything we're doing currently is being driven by our Vision 2030 strategy. So as you'll hear from me and the other members of the team, you'll see the direct connection between our work and strategic priorities and pillars in our Vision 2030 strategy that I know you're quite familiar with. So as we know, on the transmission side, we're looking to expand our footprint in the transmission business. We think this is critically important to the state in its energy transition. We're not going to be able to utilize the renewable generation that we all see coming unless we have the transmission infrastructure to be able to move it around the state. So in the first half of this year, a couple of major things happened. One, the what we call our Smart Path line, which was our oldest line. 78 miles of new transmission, and we actually celebrated recently the energization of that line. This will obviously serve an important purpose as we connect with other transmission lines that we're currently building. So Smart Paths connected to Smart Path Connect, which is connected to our Marcy, and then down getting power down into the lower part of the state. So we're really excited to celebrate the energization of the Smart Path line, and we have work underway already on Smart Path Connect. The other big thing that happened in the first half of the year on transmission is that we've been talking to you about our petition to the NYSO to be selected as the developer to upgrade the Long Island and New York City, parts of New York City grid to accommodate all the offshore wind that's going to be coming our way. And we were selected by the NYSO to be the developer along with our partner Transco, which is a group of other transmission owners that joined together. And so we'll be partnering with New York Transco on what we're calling the Propel New York Energy project. So a very exciting project that will involve, and Phil Toy, I'm stealing your slide a little bit here, but Phil will talk to you a little bit later about some of the components of it, but it'll involve 2 new submarine cables between Long Island and Westchester. As we know, we have the Y49 cable in the Sound already. We're going to have 2 additional submarine cables and additional substations and upgrade of existing substations. So this is almost a $4 billion project, and we're excited. In fact, our solutions were the top 3 ranked solutions by the NYSO. So 2 major transmission developments that again are fully aligned with our Vision 2030 strategy, which seeks to increase our transmission footprint. On the generation side, as you've had an opportunity to see some of the plants, but it gives you an idea of the footprint of the Power Authority around the state. On the generation side, we continue to provide approximately 25% of all electricity that's consumed on any given day in the state, 80% of which is clean hydropower. So we really do serve as the foundation of the state's renewable generation portfolio, and the new renewables that'll be coming online, wind, solar, offshore wind, will all be layered on top of the foundation that's provided by NYPA generation. On the customer side, in the first half of this year, just a few projects to highlight to give you an idea of the scale and of our involvement in this area on behalf of our customers. Again, tied directly to our Vision 2030 strategy, which seeks to help our governmental customers decarbonize, help them on their decarbonization journey. So we announced a LED lighting project for New York City DCAS at over 1,000 New York City schools and over 100 police precincts across 5 boroughs. Construction's underway, $300 million project on behalf of our customers. MTA EV bus charging infrastructure contract signed for $300 million for the MTA, 475 chargers across 11 New York City transit depots. 30,000 next generation window heat pumps for NYCHA as part of the Clean Heat for All challenge. And then on the economic development side, furthering the state's policies. We provided economic development awards in the first part of the year to Plug Power for green hydrogen, Air Products for green hydrogen, and Micron Semiconductor chips plant outside of Syracuse. We will be providing 140 megawatts of Recharge New York power with additional high load factor power as well. And then on behalf of the Canal Corporation, our other strategic initiative, Canals recently was named as the host site for the World Canals Conference in September of 2025. This will be a great opportunity for us to showcase the canal system and the changes that we've made under NYPA leadership. So super excited about continuing to advance our support of the canal system to really get it prepared for a third century of operation and bring it in line more with current user patterns and experiences. So that's a bit about where we've come the first half of the year and some things that we've done here. I think as we look toward the second half of the year, as I've talked to you briefly about, one of the most significant things we'll be working on in the second half of 2023 is the launch of the NYPA renewables activity that came out of the state budget process. So as we know, four pillars to the act: renewable generation, the REACH program, 25 million for labor, and close the peakers by 2030. So we've got task forces that have been established across the organization. As I think you know, I asked Joe Kessler to seek out and do an inventory of any NYPA land for renewable generation. We've begun the conferral process that's called for in the statute, where the first thing we have to do is confer with our state partners and external stakeholders to develop a report that's due in November that will basically establish where we think the state is in terms of progress toward the goals. A lot of great work is being done, but it's a dynamic industry, so we're going to be talking to external stakeholders and NYSERDA, DPS, and ORES about just where we are right now. This then will inform the development of our strategic plan in 2024 under the statute, where we'll actually start to talk about and scope out projects that might be opportunities for NYPA to fill in any gaps that we might identify through the conferral process. And that will take all of 2024, and our strategic plan will come back to you at the end of 2024 for your approval of that plan, which is then due by January 31 of 2025. So this, of course, as I've said before, is very much in keeping with NYPA's history of leaning in on behalf of the state in many ways, whether it's taking over the Canal Corporation or building the hydro plants or building the peakers when they were needed in the early 2000s, or taking over Indian Point when Con Edison needed help. So helping the state achieve its renewable goals and accelerating our progress toward those goals is something that I think, again, is really right in our wheelhouse. We couldn't be more excited about the additional responsibility we have here. And I know the team is excited. We're ready for it. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
Put all of that in the context of the broader national or arguably international realities, as we've seen the stress on the grid. I mean, Texas is readily cited in the impact of renewables there. Recently, some of the funding and financing challenges for offshore projects and all the rest of that. Put in context where we are, where the state is relative to the rest of the country in particular.
Good question. I think as you look at New York and where we are on the transmission side, I would say that there's no one using the Order 1000 FERC process, the competitive solicitation process for new transmission, more than New York State has. And we've been successful in many of those solicitations. So I think the state is leading on transmission development. And as you know, we've come to you with the projects that we're working on currently. I think it's probably the greatest transformation of the grid here, and since it was created, over the last 5 years or so, and it just keeps accelerating with Propel New York on Long Island. There'll be another solicitation right behind that, and we'll be looking to participate in that as well. I think on the generation side, I think New York has an advantage in that we have a very diverse generation fleet in the state, right? We have hydro, now we have wind and solar. We have some thermal resources. Obviously, those are going to be coming offline. We have offshore wind coming. So we have a diverse generation portfolio. So we're not overly dependent on any one given resource, which I think is a real benefit for New York. So I think big picture around the country, the build out of the grid and accelerating permitting processes and helping with the interconnection process are the two biggest things on transmission that have to take place. We've got to be able to permit things faster, and the queue has to move faster to get these projects built. But I think New York is leading, and we're proud at NYPA to be playing a significant role in that.
What about our own capacity as an organization to lean into and step into the broader agenda and the capacity building that we're doing? Give us an update on where we stand with that. Obviously, great organization who's well positioned to navigate. That said, bigger and more is expected. So how are we expanding and leaning into that?
I think on the transmission side, I know we're looking at because some of this new work that we're doing is going to give us additional responsibilities for maintaining substations and so forth, that Joe Kessler and his team have been working on, just what that team should look like and what kind of headcount is going to be required there. And Adam is already working, Adam Barsky, our CFO, is already working through the budget process on what type of headcount are we going to need to execute on the new renewables legislation. So it's very much top of mind for us. I think more to come on that. But it's an issue that we recognize that we may need to either reposition people internally,
our own resource allocation,
allocate internally differently, and we're obviously open-minded to adding headcount to meet the new responsibilities that we're going to have.
Anything that keeps you awake at night as you ponder all of that beyond the general and overarching responsibilities? Any particular aspect of what you've just recapped that's top of your sensitivity list?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really an industry issue, and it's not anything specific to NYPA or to me, I think. But I mean, the energy transition is a daunting challenge, and we all know there's a lot of new generation and transmission resources in the planning process that are coming online. But as an owner and operator of generation and transmission, there's a parallel reliability responsibility. So matching the new resources coming on and retirements of older resources, I think, is the biggest challenge facing the industry. But a lot of great work being done both at the NYSO and here at NYPA on that score.
Justin, the Renewables Act is providing NYPA an opportunity to really engage with constituencies and communities in a new and improved way. So, in terms of how are you building your relationship through possibly what I'm now terming proximity leadership to really enhance those conversations and allow these communities to be leaders in how you make decisions moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think that the legislature and the governor were very sensitive to the need for community input in the rollout of this legislation. So there are certain things that are required of us. So a lot of public hearings, a lot of stakeholder engagement, meetings and so forth. But even aside from what's required, we've got a very, very sophisticated and active environmental justice team, and also community affairs group and legislative group that coming together. I think, to your point, I think we are going to be a little bit more localized in our activities. We have been big generation, big transmission, and this new
top down versus bottom.
Yeah, this new law is going to have us in communities. One component, the REACH program, is designed specifically to benefit disadvantaged communities. So we're going to have a I think a greater community focus. I think we're going to accelerate the work that we're already doing in the communities, but it is going, I think, help us develop an additional, skill set.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Yeah, no, it goes back to the capacity building and
Yeah.
core competencies.
Yeah.
We're evolving as an organization as well. Yeah, Louis.
I was going to ask Justin about the reliability issue. So as we go into a world where we're having, in a very positive way, help Vermont, help our neighbors, have you thought through your team the capacity to be on the ground, mindful that the reliability of the carried grid could be an issue, just climate.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a lot of that work already, in our area of responsibility. As you may know, we participate in mutual aid around the country as a utility. We played a major role in Puerto Rico to help them, as Bea will attest to, in helping them get the lights back on there. So we've got dedicated teams that are available to assist other states. And obviously our own New York utilities as well, where we do a lot of inter-utility support. So I mean, I think it's obviously the grid's all connected, and so somebody else's problem can be your problem, right? So it's something we really have to stay focused on.
Laura, sure.
So thank you, Justin. Just a couple of questions. When it comes to the REACH program, I think we're all very excited. Can you talk a little bit more about what you all are doing right now as far as thinking about how to implement it? Will there be a white paper? Because, it's going to take work to really put that program together.
Yeah, I think, and again, this is an area where we're going to be more, I think, targeted and local. But we're looking at it in a couple of different ways. One is, are there like localized energy solutions that could be made available to certain communities where there's possible to have a, solar and storage in an area for the benefit of a disadvantaged community? There's also opportunities potentially to have a utility scale project that several disadvantaged communities are basically benefiting from. So I think it's early in our analysis of that. I think the first step was to try to identify land, both NYPA land and customer land, that might be appropriate for the benefit of these communities, and then also to make sure that we're overlaying the current disadvantaged community map over the top of what we're thinking about, so that we're making sure that we're executing on the mandate we've been given by the legislature. But we'll be coming back to you on that, but I think it's something that's probably going to be able to be launched on the earlier side of this new authority.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful, especially with everything that's going on right now. When we can get that moving, and we may have to modify it once we get it rolling, but very exciting. And thank you for that update. To discuss a little bit more about the local aspect in the conferral process that's commenced. It says the key stakeholders. Can you discuss a little bit more about who those stakeholders are? The agencies, are they, community-based organizations that we have relationships with already? A little bit more detail.
Yep. So I think we start with our state partners. So NYSERDA, DPS, and ORES. I think they're actually specifically called out in the statute, as is labor and environmental groups. So we'll be working with labor organizations, environmental groups, and then, but to your point, environmental justice advocates, other community-based groups, they're all going to be part of this outreach. And we actually have a list that we've started to build out of who we're going to be reaching out to. So I'd be happy to share that with you.
Yeah, that would be great. I feel, especially with all the trustees around the table, it's something that we would all really appreciate helping with.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Mike.
Good thumb.
Oh,
Got it.
you think I would know this?
You're
Yeah.
If anyone should
Thank
know
you,
it, you
Bea.
should know
Thank you.
Recovering.
Yeah, I'm recovering, yes. Justin, thank you for the presentation, and we all have full confidence that NYPA will be able to fulfill the mandates by the legislative body. I wanted to just ask, and forgive me, I know you went through some dates and all. Could you just run through the timeline again
Yes.
for us?
So
On the renewables?
Yes.
Yeah, so the conferral process, the report that we're going to be preparing is due in November of this year. So it was 180 days from enactment was the timeline that was created in the legislation. And the idea there is that process is then going to inform the development of our strategic plan, which we'll spend 2024 on. That calls for significant public engagement, hearings, and so forth. And that is due on January 31 of 2025. And we'll be coming back to you for trustee approval of the strategic plan. I would guess at the December meeting, but TBD on that, but it's due January 31 of 2025. And then at that point, we're looking at developing projects, and we're chasing and trying to accelerate that 70 by 2030 target that the state has established in the CLCPA.
So the legislation gives us basically an 18-month window as we sit here.
Yeah.
That said, we want to step into it with pace, and if there's a time to exceed expectations, this is the opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Justin, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, Yves, you're going to build on that. Take us a little bit further in terms of where we stand relative to our broad-based strategic plan.
So, good morning, everyone. You know, my name is Yves Noel. I'm SVP of Strategy and Corporate Development here at the Power Authority. I want to start with saying that I'm really excited to be here. I share in Justin's excitement around all of the outsized opportunities and advancement that NYPA is making against the decarbonization goal. The way I want to demonstrate the outsized impact that NYPA is having is really about talking about sort of our progress against Vision 2030, and specifically around, hey, what are we doing with our customers, the traditional pathways around decarbonization. Next slide, please. Oh, the end. All right. So let's start with the major thread that runs through all of what we're doing here, Vision 2030. And I won't belabor this point, but I will say that, like, when we look at the future, we see it as thriving and resilient. When we look at our mission, we see our mission is fundamentally to lead the transition. And what does that mean? Really, it means about risk-taking and innovation. Now, the structure, as you know, strategic priority, 5 pillars, 5 priorities, 5 pillars. Let's deep dive into our partnering with the customer and the state. Next slide, please. We can't talk about our customer and the state without beginning with a conversation of what are we hearing from the ground? What are we actually hearing from our customers? And what we're hearing in a sense is, so CLCPA, the local law 11 compliance, they're all taking an outsized share of everyone's mind around compliance, specifically going forward in the future, right? Everyone's thinking about, hey, what's the planning that needs to occur right now to ensure that we have compliance with the CLCPA and also these local laws? I talk about sort of what they are on this slide, and it's in your material. We won't go into the details, but next slide. So if CLCPA is top of mind and compliance is top of mind, this is the work that we do. This is our current role. So let's talk about what we're doing, and it's the traditional carbon decarbonization pathways, starting with energy efficiency projects. Right now, NYPA is underway 90 projects by the energy efficiency projects to be completed by the end of the year to really address greenhouse gas initiatives. And by the 19,000 metric tons of CO2 will be abated due to these projects. And they're with the customers that we know, right? And a list of the customers at the top. And you can see sort of some of these smaller bubbles up here are sort of the LED programs in upstate. Some of the larger are big sort of plant projects in the south. Next, let's talk about our energy, solar and storage. We've got plans to, we're in process in the city of Albany right now developing this community distributed generation project with 14,000 kilowatt hours, right? That's 26,000 modules that we're deploying here, using NYPA's insight, using NYPA's know-how around deploying solar in the state. Then finally, let's talk about charging infrastructure. Like through the Evolve program, we're deploying charging infrastructure all throughout the major thoroughfares in the state, and we're progressing against target here. All right, this is what we're currently doing outside and how all our customers are seeing. So what are we doing inside in these four walls? Next slide. The way that we structured Vision 2030 and that strategic priority is around three tactics. The first tactic is like, what are the products that we can offer that actually address helping our customers meet the 70% renewable energy supply? And this, what does this really mean? Like, look, we have our hydropower program that's offering clean energy to the state. How do we design products that we can sort of tie to our customers to address their needs? And that's what that first tactic is about. The second tactic is really like, we talked about it, energy efficiency, demand side management, project management, compliance analysis. These are all skills, these are all NYPA know-how. And these are know-how in the industry. The Olympus pilot actually brings all four of those attributes together and focus them for our customers. And this is an innovation, right? Like, because what people think, when a lot of the decisions that drive these changes are individual or isolated. But what we're trying to do is bring it all together and say, hey, like if you're thinking about putting in solar, you should think about putting in solar and the demand that's going to come from your EV charging at your facility, and think about all of that together and make that investment at once. Or, and the goal there is really about value stacking, right? Like if you make all these individual decisions and you bring them together in a plan, you'll get greater value out of them. And then finally, what about, let's talk about customer centricity. And what that really means is like, we're going to continue to do what we started with, listening to our customers. How do we listen to our customers? And what we'll see is an improved customer satisfaction score against that. Last year, we were a top performer with our customer satisfaction score. And this year, we plan on continuing doing that. And the way you do that is just listen and hear. Next slide, please. So that's all the stuff that we were doing. All right, now what's the future hold, right? With the 23-24 state budget, we've got this new expanded authority that has given us more tools in order to address our customer needs. And really those tools are around the authority to develop and own and operate renewable generating assets. So what does that mean now? Hey, maybe how can we push more customer-sided programs? How do we lean in to the question earlier, really around helping our customers generate their own clean, reliable supply of energy? We'll look at sort of exploring different PPAs, 100% renewable products. And then this gets to the question around deliverability and 24/7 reliability, bilateral arrangements, and a host more. I know sort of like the whole organization is really excited about trying to find innovative programs to speed up the time to market for projects. We also have the opportunity based on another tool is doing these master planning for the 15 top emitting state facilities. Now, and we're actively engaged, right? Like, so this is like looking at the largest emitters and bringing all our resources to help them with a plan going forward. So we're excited and we're moving forward. I think that's the last slide, right? We talked about our current role, that's our future role, and we're moving forward. Thanks. I'll take any questions.
Can I go back to the storage and EV
Sure.
slide? Maybe talk a little bit more to both of those, if you would, Yves.
Sure.
The EV space, it seems we're forever chasing overly ambitious targets. We've been forever playing catch up. If you can bring us current on where we are, I mean, there were site acquisition challenges, how we align with other private sector initiatives, the real progress that isn't being made there, and in terms of range anxiety challenges, all the rest. Can you tell us a little more on where we stand?
Yeah. So let me start with where you ended. Like, our goal around EV has always been addressing range anxiety. Like, how do we feel comfortable having the people in New York get into their cars and be willing to go from the bottom of the state to the top of the state and have charging locations across that point? And look, we were ahead of the market. We said that we were going to sort of do that national footprint, if you will, before everyone else. And it wasn't around trying to figure out the locations that had the highest utilization, because the private sector will do that. It was really around making sure that every 50 miles we have a charging station to address that. It was slow at the gate because we were at the front. We were at the beginning, right?
And overly ambitious and inflated.
I don't know about. I mean, sure. I mean, you know, I would never go to disagree with the chair.
But the benefit of hindsight.
I think you need stretch targets.
Yeah, we were
aspirational. We said we were going to do more, faster, better than the market.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you said, in the process of deploying, there were siting challenges. In the process of deploying, Tesla and other market dynamics changed. Tesla sort of started moving into the market. Tesla also started opening up their charging infrastructure. We've seen sort of a market that had a bunch of different sort of charging types starting to coalesce around one. So there's been sort of maturity in the market. And I think, like, we've got we actually got our feet underneath us. We understand that, and the market has matured. I mean, like, I was just having a conversation with Eric around how EV charging across the state of New York has the question about range anxiety is shifting away from, like, people are starting to feel a little bit of confidence about range anxiety. And a lot of that is to the benefit of what our Evolve program has done and what NYPA has done. Now we're moving into sort of the maturity, right? Like, how do you make sure the user experience is as mature as any other sort of place? And I think we have some ways, we have some ways to go there. Like, how do we improve the user experience?
And I guess so. How much are we a victim of our own ambitious aspirational planning and expectations versus no, we're still playing catch up, or no, we are in a good place? I mean, that's the context I'm trying to get as a city here at the end of July 2023. Are we behind, or are we in a good place that can only get better? But, you know, help me a little bit there.
If we think about the target about addressing range anxiety, we're on target. People are not feeling anxious about, can we get from the bottom of the state to the top of the state? If you think about sort of like, hey, from the aspect of how many chargers we put in the ground, I mean, so we made sort of projections back in 2018, back when the miles.
We talked 200, we talked 400. Clearly aren't 200 or 400.
We're at 333 is the number that we're approximately at right now that are actually deployed. For Evolve, there's 100 and specifically, I think it's 133 sites that we are across the state. But anxiety is being made, and we're progressing against the target of every 50 miles having a charger there. So, I mean, long story short, we're addressing range anxiety, and we're still moving against deploying charges.
All right, I might add, Chairman, on this point, we're going to be working closely with New York State DOT to help fill in the remaining. There are only a few remaining gaps in the heavily traveled corridors, and if you fill those in under phase 1 of the federal NEVI program, then you're entitled as a state to get an additional subsidy a pot of money for phase 2, which is more localized EV charging solutions. So there are several sites that still need to be plugged in, no pun intended, to make sure that there's no place in the heavily traveled corridors in New York State where you go 50 miles without being able to charge your vehicle. So it's an opportunity for us to lean in with our expertise. We've been doing this, as Yves said, for several years now. So DOT has come to us and said, help us fill in, the remaining gaps so that we can access the next round of funds. And I think in terms of the deployment of the chargers, we're no different than any other charging infrastructure company. You're facing the supply chain and local permitting issues that have confronted the industry. So we are second only to Tesla in the state now in terms of deployment of fast chargers around the state. So we've made a lot of progress.
But if you're second, the view's always the same. So I'm just trying to ensure that.
Yeah, I was just also going to add to the earlier point. In that original, we were calling it the ambitious plan, there were over 80 sites that were contemplated to be done along the thruway.
Right.
The Thruway Authority, it's a good news story, they got a very attractive commercial deal
Right.
with the private sector. So, what we did work, we animated, and where the private sector steps in, we're willing to, shift and pivot, go somewhere else where there's a challenge. So that's why the numbers always have been a little bit under what the goal is. But that was it. But that was all for good reasons.
Yeah, the outcomes there. Do the same with storage. We talk a lot about storage, the importance of storage and scaling storage. It seems to be we're always talking about it, but the outcomes bring us current. Give me a little more context and depth as to where we are, especially within the broader, renewables opportunity.
So storage is facing challenges throughout the state, right? Here's what it is. I mean, if you think about the state, right? Upstate, you can cite storage, but they're not economic. Downstate in densely populated area where the storage becomes economic, there's been challenges. There's a lot of, look, the recent news about the fires around with the many storage, either factories or, isn't helping pushing storage forward. I think, and rightfully so, the fire department is working with companies around sort of the deployment of storage in the downstate. So that is one area that there is a challenge. I think where we see opportunity is in our current sites, like where we currently have where we have natural gas facilities and transitioning them to storage after conversion, right? And this goes all to sort of the point earlier about, look, we're a NYPA owned land, we're a NYPA owned infrastructure already existing that we can leverage in order to accelerate and time to market for storage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yves, I was going to ask about your energy efficiency projects beyond 2023, so 2.0. Do you have a slate of new projects that you're looking?
We do.
24 and 25.
We do. So fortunately, energy efficiency projects is bread and butter at NYPA. Like we've been doing, like our clean energy program we've been doing it for a long time. And also fortunately, the pipeline and life cycle of these projects go beyond years, right? So like right now we're talking about planning with some folks. Next year, we'll actually begin the implementation. The year after that, we'll talk about the operation and maintenance, like how they're going to do that. So like it's a 3, 4, 5 year cycle. So yes, there's a pipeline of projects that we are moving against.
And do we offer financial incentives like New York City Health and Hospitals? Will we also offer incentives for them to become more energy efficient?
Sure. I think our first foot forward is our technical know-how. We know how this gets done. And sort of like in all instances, they're not looking for financial incentives. I think part of with the expanded authority, it provides us some new tools, and we're exploring options around those tools.
And we have historically, Trustee Warren provided low-cost financing to energy efficiency customers, governmental customers, so they can sort of pay us back over time based on the energy The idea is
Yeah.
paying us back based on the energy savings.
And I would think our cost of capital would be lower than
Correct.
many of these downstream institutions.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah,
great.
that's a tool, an
Yeah.
important tool in many things that we do to enable
Yes.
outcomes that otherwise wouldn't be achieved or at a minimum would be extended over a longer period of time. So, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions for Yves? Laura?
Oh, thank you, Eve, for your presentation. Just a couple questions.
Sure.
NYPA.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit more about the projects we've been doing recently? Any plans for future collaboration? You know, obviously, City
Yeah.
Housing Authority.
So NYPA is an interesting and sort of important partner for the New York Power Authority,
Yeah.
right? You know, you can go all the way back to sort of the work that we did around the window units in their window units, right? Like, so NYPA is an opportunity where we look for innovation in addressing their GHG, right? I think Justin started off the conversation with a little bit talk about the Clean Heat for All program, right? We're also looking for opportunities to have innovation within sort of like electric stoves in people in the NYPA buildings. So these are all different opportunities for us to partner with NYPA, figure out like where are they sort of, how are greenhouse gases being emitted at their facilities and how do we address them? Building heat's one. The building heat is obviously the biggest. So that's where we went first. After that, it's sort of electric heat, cooking. So we're sort of marching down, going after the biggest things first and thinking about innovative opportunities.
And is that heating and cooling?
Heating and cooling, yes. with the
Yeah,
heat
just
pumps,
wanted, because
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
that's so important,
Yeah.
especially with the city, so many heat islands,
Sure,
you
definitely.
know, so being very forward thinking.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
And heat pumps are the unsung hero of the European decarbonization. And we're bringing that sort of innovation and know-how to New York.
So speaking of New York,
Yeah.
and I saw you had a list potentially of the 15
Yep.
largest emitters of our own,
Yep.
you know. So I think, you know, speaking for myself, but knowing my board members as we, you know, journey as a board together, would love to see that list.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, you know, that's really where we're going to learn and probably be able to grow from our own experiences working on those different projects. So would love to see what the list looks like now. And then as we continue down this path, you know, keep informed about which particular sites are, you know, geared for different projects.
Makes sense. Love to share.
So thank you.
And the good news there is we already have some work underway before the law was enacted. We were already working
We were
with
down
Stony,
this path.
with Stony Brook University that's on the list, and also Empire State Plaza.
Yes.
Anything else for Yves? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your leadership as always. Excellent presentation. Look forward to continuing updates. Thanks so much. Adam's up out of his seat, anxious to get to the podium. So you know it must be a good news story. So
Set you right
You're
up.
stealing all the thunder there, Chairman, but yes, good morning,
Never.
trustees, NYPA, employees, members of the public. So what I'll do is give you first a look at where we are in actual results for the first 6 months and then how does that look towards the end of the year. So we are tracking a little bit ahead of plan, which is a good news. But, you know, just for those who weren't here in the beginning of the year, our plan was really developed back in the fall, and we get it approved in December. But it's based around, you know, sort of where the forward energy curves were at that time. And we were just coming out of a very high energy price point, given the last year's events around Ukraine, Russia. And those higher prices were still in effect in the fall when we were putting the plan together and doing that. As we got to January, the bottom just kind of came out of the energy price market and energy prices declined over 60%. So we started the year looking as if we were going to have a significant miss and hole on our merchant book, which is where we sell all of the non-customer contracted power. that merchant book represents about, and our plan was a $329 million target. I reported to the board in January based on both the energy prices coming down and the unusually warm January we had. And January is our biggest month actually in terms of revenue generation. That we were going to be about $40 million off target. So we were looking at significant shortfalls there. What has happened since, both between our hedging program, which we use to protect our downside risk from prices going down, and it did exactly what it was designed to do. It helped buffer us. But also there has been a significant rebound or increased spike in capacity prices, both downstate and the rest of the state. Most of that is based on NOx rules for all kinds of plants in the region, including coal plants where they are needed to be shut down. So more plants coming offline than was, I guess, anticipated earlier in the market. So that has driven capacity prices higher. So it's allowed us to sort of narrow that $40 million gap to where as of this snapshot date, against that 329 target, right now we're forecasting 317, or no, excuse me, 312. So right now we're 17 off versus the 40. So we've made up some ground there. Transmission revenues are down also. So we look at the margin, look at the gross on the left, and then we net things from the, sort of the energy sold versus the cost of goods sold, the energy expense, and we get to the margins on the right-hand column. Transmission's a little bit off, mostly related to some congestion charges we would normally get. Those were coming in under what was forecasted, and that's going to also narrow as we look at the end of the year. Expenses are tracking well to budget, and our interest income is running higher based on the higher interest rates that we've been seeing as the Fed has continued to raise rates. So yesterday they raised it again, and we're seeing maybe one more rate increase possibly before they pause, or they may skip. But anyway, that sort of takes us to where we are today. So we've narrowed some of that gap on the energy. Expenses are holding firm, outperforming on interest income. So that's giving us a little bit of being above plan. Any questions on sort of the actuals?
Yeah, we'll spend a little more time at finance so everyone gets increasingly comfortable. But as Adam said, we're on both sides of the sell and buy curve. So it cuts both ways. And
yeah, so
we're working off a spot basis in terms of spot market and analysis in terms of when the plan is and all the rest of that. Very dynamic. We had a very robust hedging program that's been incredibly effective. So while some of the gross variances, you go, whoa, what's our ability to plan or forecast? A very dynamic and fluid market. You can see as is captured on a net basis, which is really how we run the business. The impacts are very effectively managed and hedged, and we'll walk you through a little more of the nuances of that in finance in the months ahead.
No, that's correct, Chairman, and I think that's a good point. The other thing I would also mention is, and this is why we do show that margin analysis. So we have our customer contracted revenue from our generating assets. We have the merchant that we sell, and also for our scenic customers, at least I would say over 50% of their load, we buy in the open market and act as basically a pass-through agent for them. So if you're looking at those big gross misses, as the chairman was saying, some of that is really just reflective of those open market purchases. So if the price is high, we're getting more revenue, but we're going to have more purchased power expense. Price is low, it comes down. So the net on those are zero, but it does create some noise and that optic issue that Chairman's talking about in terms of gross numbers moving around. So we look at the customer revenue, we look at the merchant margins, and that really tells the story.
Yeah, one unfortunate downside of not being able to sell into the market at the prices we otherwise anticipated, some of our economic development funding for both the Buffalo Niagara region, Western New York region, as well as the North Country is impacted because those excess dollars that fund the power proceeds pools there. And as you'll see, those are,
Right.
those are diminished from what we otherwise optimally would like them to be,
Yeah, well,
but that's just the
yes.
outcome of the vagaries of the market.
Yeah, so last year, because of that spike, aside from NYPA doing well for our bottom line, as the chairman is mentioning, some of that we give back in the form of economic development. So I'll explain how that works. So in the Western region, there's a certain amount of allocated power to that region for economic development. If there's not sufficient customer usage, right, that becomes part of our merchant. But with respect to that amount that's available to them, if we earn higher than the tariff price, which would be awarded to an economic development customer, that additional amount doesn't go to NYPA. We take it and we put it into account for economic development. Last year generated over $36 million for economic development. So we always say that's sort of like shows up an expense here, but we see that as like a dividend to reinvest those additional proceeds back into economic development in that region. If it goes down, that's, then, we need to manage that risk if it goes below the tariff price. So yes, that is another factor here.
And while we're obviously and just talk about bottom line, folks, be assured the operating income number is important to us. We're not trying to make plan on the backs of the market, what the market's doing. So, we manage the business from an operating standpoint, and we're comfortable and confident in terms of where we find ourselves.
That's correct. So I'll go to the next slide in terms of the end of the year projection. So the end of the year projection is pretty much holding to what where we're seeing ourselves in 6 months today to the end of the year. Again, we're projecting a range, but within that range, doing somewhat better than the initial target of the 95. Right now, we're saying it's 110. It could be better. It could be less, depending on the outcome between now and the end of the year of a variety of different factors. So one of the things that we show in the increase in expenses as we look to the end of the year is our pension expense. So our pension expense is really based on the performance of the state's pension funds. So all the NYPA employees that are in various tiers as part of the statewide system, the state controller manages those funds. It's over $200 billion. It's very well funded, but it really moves up and down with where the market is, both in fixed income, equities, et cetera. So last year, the fund for the state has to make an actuarial or investment return around 5.9%. Because the market did not perform well last year, their year goes from April 1st to March 31st. That's the state's fiscal year. Ours is calendar. Their performance results were 4.1% negative. So it's a 10% swing in what they were supposed to make. And then that difference gets smoothed out over 5 years. But to all the participating entities like NYPA, other state agencies, other authorities, we will get a bill from them in September and also tell us what our actuarial expenses for pension costs. So we're trying to anticipate, based on that underperformance, what that additional expense will be, which is different than the cash contribution we make. It's an accounting expense. So some of that's non-cash. So we're putting aside some money to anticipate what that number will be. We should know in September, and we'll update the board at that time. So that's the one big variance piece we're keeping our eye on that would have some impact on these year-end projected results. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, before you jump to capital and all that.
I just had a question, Chairman, on the operating expense line. So the expected variance for the second half of the year will still be estimated, Adam, as positive, right? Super positive. So what's in that bucket, fuel consumed bucket, between our budget and current run rate and anticipated for the second half of this year?
Yeah, so some of that is a fuel consumed for our own generating plants, downstate. And again, because of where prices were, where demand was because of the weather changes. These units were being called on less than they were the prior year or less than was originally forecasted based on prices and load factors and things of that nature. So we expected less generation revenue out of it, but also less fuel consumed because they wouldn't be running as frequently as was originally projected. And again, before we get into the other capital slides, just a couple other quick updates for everybody. So I think I've mentioned to people about the captive insurance program that we got authorized by the legislature to do. And I think everybody here has done all their work to become the background checks to get in for the requirements of the Department of Financial Services. But very good news to report that this week we got the official license from the Department of Financial Services. So we are now fully up and operational, and we can get going on putting together that insurance program.
Oh, excellent.
The other is that this is an update, is a look ahead to September. We will be coming back to you for financing for our separately financed projects that we're doing around transmission. So this will be financing Smart Path Connect. It'll be approximately a $720 million size bond issue. So we'll be coming back in September for authorization to do that. Hopefully we can hit the market soon after. If things continue to hold the way they have been, it'll be an ideal time for us to be in the market. So we are moving very quickly ahead to have all that teed up and ready to go. I think we passed around some of the rating agency reports on our general NYPA credit from S&P, and we've been discussing with all the rating agencies our overall credit rating, as well as rating on the particular bonds we'll be issuing come September, October. And hopefully, because this is now the second time, and we've had some good positive experience from the first time we ever did this, which was last year, we're looking for some of these agencies to potentially give us an upgrade. So we're working very hard to get that going as well.
And we'll pick all that up in finance as we go on.
As we go along.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, just to give an update on sort of you'll get this normally in your packages. This is just a recap of our capital program and how it's broken down. We will, as we go into the budget season, we'll get into more specifics about individual projects. We'll give you tear sheets on each project that gives you an explanation so you can see what it's basically about. But that's just the split of things between energy efficiency, generation, transmission, canals, headquarters. Next slide, please. And this is just how we're tracking year to date in terms of our spend. Some of the spend was a little bit delayed. Some of the bigger projects were somewhat delayed in getting going, but we see that catching up towards the end of the year and that gap narrowing. So obviously we don't want to be ahead of budget in terms of the spending, but also it's an indication as to how the projects are progressing. So we want to show that the projects are also moving along and that we'll be more hitting towards plan. So the goal here is to really have the projects go according to plan, both budget-wise and schedule. Next. And this is sort of a dashboard that we give an update, quick look. These are our top, this page and the next, the top 20 projects that we have. These comprise over 85 to 90% of the total capital budget. So just by looking at, these big rock projects, they account for the bulk of what our capital spend is going towards. You'll see here, as we discussed in the earlier part with Yves, that on the EV charging stations, in terms of meeting the schedule to have certain numbers in by a certain date, we're obviously behind on hitting those dates, and we discussed all the reasons contributing to that. Comms backbone, slightly off schedule, but is now complete. So this is going to come off the list. So we're fine on that one. Next slide, please. Again, here, just an update, what's authorized, what's spend. Here, the Zone D battery storage, again, was a little bit delayed in terms of the schedule. Some of the, again, as we talked about storage, a lot of work needed to be done on the interconnections with the fire department and getting all their inspections and permitting done. And that's a big piece of getting these storage projects in place. But that one, since this was submitted, happy to report that is complete. So we got a substantial completion notice for that project. The other interesting thing here too is that this may be the first candidate we have to take advantage of the direct pay incentive in the IRA legislation. So this could result in $10 million to offset the cost of this project. We will start looking to file with the Treasury Department as soon as the date is that we can. So this will give us our first experience about how to access those important credits for various renewable projects. So that'll be our guinea pig, if you will. Next. And these are some of the new ones that'll be coming on the list as a look ahead. Propel, you'll be hearing more about that. That is at $500 million. A somewhat adjacent related project is the East Garden City project, which is also our project, but as part of the NYSO approval around Propel. This was also required by NYSO to have an upgrade of that, and we've decided to exercise our right to do that work. Right now, it's early design. We expect it to be somewhere between $160 to $200 million. We're also putting into place enterprise resource planning, which is our core IT system. This will be, which is now SAP. We're replacing that with something else, and we're laying all the groundwork for that, and that will have a dramatic change in terms of automating lots of processes at NYPA and trying to make us more efficient in how we automate our work. There's a drone program you'll hear more about in coming meetings that we use for inspection, surveillance, and actually doing some of the line pulling work around some of our transmission projects. So we're very excited about this drone program and all the benefits it has from us from an efficiency standpoint, safety, all related issues that we're excited about. And then Northern New York Earthen Dam Project, again, this is up in the Messina, doing some dam work and resiliency around that. Next. One of the things we're also doing is, we talk about capacity in terms of resources, people. So we also have to look at it from our capital capacity, and this is something we manage. We look at our 10-year program, so we have to always calibrate it to what our financials are doing. Can they support the capital plan at the current level? There's like a multiplier effect. Every $1 million results in $20 million of capital capacity. So when numbers go up or down, it either increases capacity or lowers capacity. But one of the things we've been really trying to do, given all these new responsibilities, is go through all of these capital projects and score them based on priorities, needs for state of good repair. Are they strategically more important than others? Financially, are they feasible? So we go through this analysis so that we can, if we have to slide projects back or move them up, depending on importance, we can do it in a way that's been prioritized in terms of what does it mean for NYPA in supporting the Vision 2030 goals with an eye towards that. So as we make room to handle the new renewables and others, we're going to always calibrate the capital plan to be able to account for our capacity to be able to finance these projects and maintain all of our credit metrics and all the other things that we need to do as part of that box and that solution that we have to maintain. Next. So that was it on those issues before we get into the release of canals, and we'll explain that in a second. But any questions going back to any of the information we just provided?
But just to segue to the next item, which will require action, if you scroll back a couple to your capital allocation, scroll back the stack there, energy efficiency canals.
Go back.
Just to focus on canals, so the group, there's clarity here. You see here 423 million in capital for the canals. That's capital, and that's in addition to the operating subsidy. So the next agenda item on which we will ask for your support is an allocation of a quarter of the approximately $100 million in operating support we provide, in addition to approximately 100 million in capital support. So we're supporting in excess of 200 million a year. in terms of canals between operating and capital.
Yeah, that's correct. But also embedded in these numbers in the plan, again, there is only so much, the needs may be greater than what was originally anticipated when NYPA took over the canal. So we've been in active conversation with the state as they also see this as a critical state asset that we're maintaining on their behalf. So we're going to be, some of the numbers here include what I call contingent capital, which means it's capital that will be contingent upon getting funding either from the state or the federal government for some of the programs that we're doing. We'll talk about that as we get into the canal slides in a second, but that's something that we're actually actively doing and having conversations about how can we receive, some more money from, whether it be the infrastructure, money from the federal government, the State Bond Act, or other monies that are available in the state budget to help augment what we're providing in terms of support. And they've been receptive so far to this request and working with us in a very productive way. Next.
So with that, go right ahead.
Yep. So we call this the release of funds. Why do we say it's a release? Well, based on our bond covenants with our bond holders, we have a waterfall. So first thing has to be paid is operating expenses to run NYPA's energy assets. That comes first. Next becomes debt service on the bonds that we issue to build all of our capital projects and maintain them in a state of good repair. The canal's responsibility, which came up in 2017, is sort of subordinate to those claims, if you will. So when we provide money on an operating basis, I come to the board as I'm doing today to say that, I believe it's feasible and advisable for the board to approve this release, because as a result of making this payment or this release, it will not impact NYPA's ability to operate its assets or pay its debt service, or as per board resolution, maintain at least a 2 times debt service coverage ratio, which is the case today. So based on that certification to you, I request the release of the funds so that we can provide it to the canals for the next quarter's operations.
And embedded in your earlier variance analysis were the canal operations, and there's nothing out of the ordinary. There's nothing notable relative to those canals operations that we should know of before approving this allocation.
No, they're tracking the budget. I mean, they have the same issue we're going to have with the overall NYPA in terms of their allocation of the pension expense. But I think what we're forecasting now is that these should be, absent the pension expense issue, tracking to budget, maybe even coming in slightly lower. We were able, there was some lift bridge work that had to be done, which was originally in the operating budget, which we were able to turn into, make it capital. So it kind of freed up some money there. So it helps us make sure that we'll come in under budget. So yeah, we're looking to track.
Okay. Unless there's any other questions around canals, I'd ask for a motion to support the approval of the release. Thanks. All right, Lori had her hand up. We'll give Lori, credit. Dennis, second. Or you and Cecily can fight over it. I'll defer to Karen. Karen will sort it out in the minutes. Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Yep. And just again, just as an add-on, this is what the chairman was talking about in terms of the capitals being provided to the canals. It's broken out by regular canal work and also the Reimagine program, which is some of the additional work to provide additional infrastructure requirements for those most critical parts of the canals, as well as community investments, enhancing in terms of, allowing for more recreational activities such as the kayaking, the glamping. There's some, footbridges connecting one part of the canals to another part of different towns and communities. So trying to, as we do all of this work around the canals, it's very important that we engage the local community and have their support and buy-in. Nobody really wants trees getting taken down along the canals, but that is a significant risk to the integrity of the embankments. So all these things have to kind of be managed with a very close engagement with those local communities. Next, and this is just.
So we don't need to talk about that Brockport Bridge, right?
No.
Okay, good.
I call it the sculpture. This is sort of a version of what we just showed you on the overall NYPA side, but these are some of the big big rock projects for the canals. As you can see, most of it is around dam safety and resilience. There are the pedestrian bridge projects as well listed there. The chairman's just referencing, but again, all of those are on time, on schedule. But these are the significant projects for canals. Next. So that's it for that. Any other questions on any of the material we've covered? Again, we'll be back to have more discussions in finance and lead up as we come to you for the bond issue approval in September.
And our planning process will kick off again sooner than not. It's hard to believe I'm saying that, but
Right.
it's closer than not as we restart that effort again.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Great. Thanks very much, Adam. Appreciate it. As we all know, risk management is a vital responsibility any board has within the scope of its fiduciary responsibilities. Tom Spencer's here to give us a update on some of our risk oversight tools, risk dashboards, and the like. So, Tom, the podium is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, trustees, NYPA staff, and members of the public. As was mentioned, my name is Tom Spencer. I'm the Senior Director of Enterprise and Operational Risk here at NYPA. Today's presentation is a brief overview of the Enterprise Risk Management Program, and we'll give an update on 6 of the NYPA enterprise level risk. So as you can see, the Enterprise Risk Management Program encompasses both NYPA and canals, with 16 enterprise risk at NYPA and 12 at canals. The program is a systematic and robust approach that uses tools such as workshops, surveys, benchmarking, or risk metrics to identify, assess, and manage our risk. We work with risk owners, risk sponsors, multiple groups across the NYPA and canals to identify any changes in drivers, metrics, or areas of concern to ensure there's appropriate oversight of our risk and we are managing risk within our risk appetite. If you look at the graphic on the slide, you can see in Q1, I presented to the board a new and consolidated holistic risk reporting format to the board for enterprise level risk. This format was a shift away from the traditional laterally risk group based reporting to the board, and it was a more comprehensive and combined risk reporting format. By leveraging the work of multiple groups across NYPA and canals, we were able to provide enhanced transparency and visibility into the enterprise risk profiles of the organization. In addition to changing the format, we also changed the cadence of reporting to the Board of Trustees. We went from an annual basis to a biannual rolling quarterly format. And as you can see, for 2023, we have the schedule and we'll report out to the board for all the additional NYPA canals and enterprise risk. Following the schedule, we are down to Q2. So this will be their first quarterly update based on the new reporting format and the new cadence. So we could flip to the next slide, please. So before focusing on the details of this slide, I thought it would be good to give the new board members a quick refresher on the report and how it's displayed and calculated. So for reference, all the details associated with calculating the risk management and control scores on this slide were provided in the appendix. So for this report, each enterprise risk has a speedometer graphic, which illustrates the calculated risk management and control score. And it is displayed on the image with a black needle gauge. And it can fall into a green, yellow, or red category, indicating the level of risk management and controls for that risk. The needle location is determined using an algorithm that considers enterprise and emerging risk drivers, operational risk, and associated controls identified by the internal business controls team, mission essential functions, and the corresponding business continuity plans, the level of insurance coverage we have, and the amount of risk transfer, risk metrics within a defined risk tolerance range, and internal audit work, observations, and findings. This is overlaid against our risk appetite range from our risk appetite statement and is represented on the graphic in the blue band. Using this, we can make sure we are managing, controlling our risk in a prudent manner and ensure alignment to our risk appetite in one easy to understand graphic. As you can see, this report highlights 6 of our enterprise level risks: critical infrastructure, destructive events, physical security, workforce health and safety, sustained margin reduction, and third-party risk management. At a high level, the report concludes we are operating in the well-managed risk management and control zone score and within our risk appetite range for each of the risks. Today, we won't go over all 6 of the risks due to some time limitations, but I wanted to highlight some of the areas of note on this report. So if I could focus your attention to the top middle row under destructive events. This risk is mapped to our extreme weather events category in our risk appetite statement. And when you review this, you see we are in the well-managed and controlled risk appetite range. When you look at it, you can also see we are at the lower end of our risk appetite score. That is due to the fact that because of this being mapped to the weather events category, that's something that we don't have a lot of control over. So we decided to have a higher risk appetite there. Despite that, we do have many mitigation activities and controls in place in case that risk were to manifest. We have well-maintained assets and a highly trained staff. Regularly conduct drills and exercises. We have a comprehensive business continuity, emergency management, and disaster recovery programs in place, in addition to transferring risk through various insurance products. If we turn our attention to the middle of the bottom page under sustained margin reduction, this risk is mapped to the financial and capital availability category in our risk appetite statement. And as you can see, the risk management and control score is on the border between the well and moderately managed range and is aligned with our risk appetite statement, is in alignment with our risk appetite. As an organization, we face commodity price and volume exposure. We have external cost escalation factors such as inflation, and we also have increased competition, all these putting pressure on our margins. We manage and mitigate the sustained margin reduction risk through commodity hedging program, new and existing customer initiatives, portfolio diversification, such as expansion of our transmission asset base, and through an extensive budgeting process that ensures cost containment. When we look to the left, to the right of that, to third-party risk management, you can see that this risk is also on the border between the well and moderately managed range, but we are within our risk appetite. We manage and control this risk through multiple activities. We have an intensive vendor RFP and selection process in place. We prioritize and tier vendors based on criticality. We practice vendor diversification, and we deal with high quality credit or secured credit counterparties, and we work with suppliers to understand their plans to provide local or domestic shipping as an alternative to relying on overseas supplies. In addition, some of our strategic initiatives and business model dictates we have a higher risk appetite in this area, and we attempt to transfer risk through increased joint ventures, partnerships, or strategic alliances. We also strive for greater portfolio diversification and increased NWBE participation. There are a few of the items I want to discuss around risk. And now if we could, I'll move to the next slide, which is around opportunities. When we speak about risk, we also want to speak about opportunities and ways we can capture those opportunities. To provide the board better visibility into those efforts, we reviewed our 2023 project portfolio, and we focus on projects that were classified as either growth or transformative in nature, and that were mapped to the enterprise risk on the previous page. Growth projects focus on enhancing existing assets and capabilities, while transformative projects focus on fundamental change or new capabilities. As the graphic illustrates, approximately 24% of the project portfolio and roughly $500 million of our 2023 annual spend is for projects that address risk and capture opportunities. These growth and transformative projects span a diverse range of efforts, such as bringing renewable generation to new markets via transmission, enhancing customer services or programs, enriching the value of our current assets, or furthering sustainability initiatives through energy storage or EV charging station projects. All of these projects are ways of capturing opportunity and increasing the authority's resilience. Before closing, I guess I'd take any questions. And, I just wanted to also mention that we had reported previously to the board on a self-assessment of the risk management team's maturity level. We have selected a vendor to do an independent assessment of that. And I'll be back in Q4 to provide you the results of our maturity assessment versus the independent assessment. So open for questions.
Any questions for Tom? I think these, hopefully give you some good little snapshot. You look at, that last pie chart, overly simplified to say 75% operational, 25% strategic in terms of capital investments and spend. You see the risk management. Captain Obvious is not risk elimination. Nobody can eliminate risk. You manage risk to the extent it's within our control. We're able to be a little more conservative to the extent we're relying on external dynamics, the marketplace or third-party resources need to work within that, but we do try to manage risk within the context of reward. Risk is fine if the rewards and returns are relevant. The teams, I think, evolved tremendously as I've observed it, and really nicely sophisticated and appropriately positioned the risk management program at this point. As you learn, I'm confident you'll be impressed with the work we do. In addition to the cyber challenges you otherwise hear about that Eric and his team are on top of. Yep.
Chairman, I just have a quick question on, is there a common definition of state of good repair across all of your assets, transmission assets, generation assets? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for each one of our projects, and I don't have it with me, but I know there is one. So we have definitions of what transformative means, what state of good repair means, right? We do have those definitions, 100%.
I guess I would just add to that, there's also a lot of regulatory oversight and compliance on the transmission and, as critical infrastructure and generation. So, we obviously are following that as well, so.
If you were to isolate canals, would those grids would look different, correct?
Oh, yeah, right. So that's where, so when we come back in Q3, at the end of Q3, we're going to go over all of the canals risk. And, one of the things, I think there's going to be a risk committee, a subcommittee, risk committee of the board. So won't try to cram everything into 10 minutes. So, we'll be able to give you some more insight, but we've started doing some of that preliminary work right now. And they look much different. There'll be many more topics for discussion.
I'm looking forward or anticipating what we're going to learn.
Yeah, but to ensure there's no undue negative connotation there. The risk management, and the oversight as we sit here in 23, we're in incredibly better position, I'm sure, than we were when we, adopted, canals back in, 17. The team in general, the canals team in particular, is doing a wonderful job of stepping up and stepping in. Joe and his team, as we'll hear in a moment, we're further investing in tugs
And
and
that's
all.
really the point. I
We're
wanted to
upgrading.
make, Right.
So it's 100 million operating, it's at least 100 million of capital. We've been doing that since 17. Simple math, we got over $1 billion invested in it. Be assured with that, the level of performance and play has been elevated dramatically there as well.
No, even just since I've been sitting on as a trustee, I've noticed the improvement in terms of alignment of culture and intentionality to the needs.
No question.
So I don't want to diminish that, but I also don't want to not know, right, the true state of.
I think one of the
I'm not
things, that-
debating, I'm just making sure that didn't imply,
No, it didn't.
things are other than well managed there. We're progressively stepping into that.
one of the things why we changed the reporting format from annually to biannually was, right, to give leadership better visibility into how risks were changing. And then with this new format in the gauge, you'll be able to see like every 6 months, like we were here and we moved here. So you'll be able to see more clearly how the activities and actions we're taking will improve the risk posture of
Those
canals.
canals needles have been moving in the right
Oh,
direction.
no, I realize that, but it's important for us to know where the gaps are.
Yeah,
In
and
terms of.
And we'll, with the deeper dives, as we work our way through, that's the kind of information we'll work through, okay? Thanks very much, Tom, appreciate
Thanks.
it. Joe, you're chiming in from, North Carolina. The screen is yours.
Thank you, John. And I see that the report is up, and so thank you, Chairman Colmo and trustees, Justin and staff, and the public listening at large here for first of all, this allowing me to do this report, but also accommodating me to do it remotely as such. And just in terms and spirit of belts and suspenders, I do have our head of commercial operations, our VP of Customer Clean Energy Solutions, Maribel Cruz, in the room, and also our SVP of Operational Support Services and Chief Engineer Brad Van Auken in the room. So if technology fails us, we're in good shape. You can go right to the next slide, please. So the first project I want to talk about is the Y49. We call it the Long Island Sound Cable. There's a lot of discussion that's been going on. Justin, Yves, and the team have been talking a lot about the importance of, the getting energy to Long Island with some of the projects like Propel and other things that we're going to be dealing with in the coming years. But it's also important to note that we do have assets in place right now to support zones J and K, Long Island, and New York to do that today. One of the most important ones that we've had is this Y49 Long Island cable, which is a 26-mile cable, 345 kV line that brings about 600 megawatts down into that region. And that cable has 3 segments associated with it. There's a land segment on the Westchester side. Then there's a submarine cable that crosses the sound itself. And there is about a 10-mile section of high pressure fluid filled cable on the Long Island side. We've had really limited issues with the Westchester section of that and the transition stations specifically and the equipment around that. We've had a couple of anchor strikes on the submarine cables over the years that we've had to repair, but the real pressure for us in keeping that line in service has been on that Long Island side, where we've had 9 faults in that Nassau County area. And really 4 in quick succession that were very frustrating to the organization and to the system in the 2020 and 21. So we decided what we're going to do is, if you go to the next slide, please, is to replace that section of the cable. So what you're seeing there is some of the equipment that we used to put that in place. And so the scope of it was the 10-mile section. And the whole idea here was that there was thermomechanical bending happening because when that line heats up and cools down, there's stresses on the cable itself that forced this bending. And what we found out is that the distance between some of these splices and the sections of the cable were just too long for this design that was installed in 1991. So we took it upon ourselves to take reusing a lot of the conduit to replace this cable itself in that section. And we actually worked very closely with PSEG Long Island and our partners at NYPA to do this, and learned a lot about the things that we may encounter coming forward with some of the Propel projects and other projects that we have in the Long Island area. It's a very congested area, you know, with traffic and obviously a highly populated area. But we were very successful in doing this in one outage instead of two. At first, it was proposed that we would do this in a couple different phases. We made the case that in working with the New York ISO and the local transmission operators that we'd be better off doing this in one phase, and we were able to accomplish it on budget, which was $84 million, and technically came in about 5 days ahead of schedule. So we're very proud of that. That just happened in May. And knock wood, so far so good. As we head into this heating season, I see that New York ISO is expecting a peak about 2,700 or 27,000 megawatts today in New York State. That's still a little bit under their threshold for some of the records, but it's going to be a hot season, and we're well positioned with this cable in place today. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So the other exciting project that I'd like to speak about is our unmanned aircraft system, which is a lot of people know as drone program. It's actually expanded quite beyond just drones, and I'll get into that a little bit. But there was a time that the New York Power Authority really had a couple of experimental drones, and it wasn't that long ago. It really was pre-Hurricane Maria that we had a couple of very heavy drones that we were experimenting with some payloads for infrared and inspecting transmission lines and so forth. And when we got dispatched to support PREPA in Puerto Rico, the DEC brought with them, and as part of our complement, a couple of drones that really captured incredible photographs of what we were trying to investigate down in Puerto Rico. And we learned a lot from that. And what we learned is that we don't need so much sophistication on the drone itself. The payload and the image are really what the value is. And these days, that drone program has expanded to a point where every day we do have some drones in the air supporting our efforts in investigating transmission lines, other assets, and they really have increased our safety and our reliability in some of the equipment we have. So as Adam pointed out, we're going to be investing further into this. So for example, last year that we executed over 412 missions. So within 5 years, we went from a couple of experimental drones just trying to figure out, you know, what's the best use for these drones, to having over 100 pilots, qualified pilots, another 13 in training. And we're capable of operating our fleet of 63 drones with over 100 pilots qualified to do so now. And they go across the spectrum of capabilities in terms of what their job duties are. So we have the ability to be flexible in terms of responding to emergencies. In fact, we actually dispatched some drone assets to our state of Vermont partners as they were investigating some of their dam safety questions just as a few weeks ago from all the flooding. So the pie chart just provides a breakdown of the missions. The details are in there, but they involve inspection of our assets, anything from, you know, active bird nests and, you know, dead end shackles, but equipment that we see that we would never be able to pick up. And even with visual inspections with people that would be climbing would be a challenge. So even this year, we've completed 217 missions to date. Actually through June, so there's actually more than that now, and we're typically putting 5 or 10 missions up in the air each day. So next slide, please. It shows the program has developed now a 5-year plan to progress us even further. The mission here is really to The next steps of the drone program are really around capturing the data, making sure we're archiving it, and having this data aggregated for really what amounts to AI and ML applications to support our asset management. So media management will be a big key to this, and making sure we have all that data together, that it's searchable, that we can compare different images and so forth. And over the past year, the UAS program really achieved a significant milestone by acquiring beyond visual line of sight and remote operations waiver for the Blenheim Gilboa facility. So what that means is now we can actually start using some programming and operations where the drone is actually literally beyond our line of sight. Typically, we have to use that. We have to be in sight of the operator of the drone to do what we're doing, and that is a very effective and productive way of doing some of these inspections. But now we have the capability of potentially scanning an entire line, send the drone out and back, capturing all the data, and then really doing all the hard work at a desktop as we download all that information and compare it to the baselines that we need to have there. So you'll see on the consent agenda today, there was a request for $9.5 million of funding to support the foundational initiatives for this overall program. And as Adam pointed out, we'll be looking to expend approximately $37 million over the next 5 years in support of that. The next slide, please. I don't see it coming up here, but we should be on the vessels.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I'm assuming the slides are just not updating here. Thank you. All right, so the team has been working on modernizing the Canal Corporation marine fleet as well for the past 5 years. This is an important effort for us. We always had marine assets in the New York Power Authority with our, call it our NYPA Navy, which is really around supporting ice breaking and ice management, ice boom installation and removal. I know a number of the trustees have made tours of Niagara and have seen images of those operations, and they're very important for the utility side of our business. But there are over 100 floating assets on the canal side as well. And if the proper image is up, you'll see there's examples of the renewed fleet that we've taken care of over the last few years. One of the most recent purchases were the workboats that are pictured in the upper left. These single engine workboats will replace obsolete buoy boats and offer much more stable, safe, and efficient operations for the crews and on the canals. The bottom left photo shows a mechanical dredge operation in the Utica section. As part of the modernization program, this completely new dredge system with GPS positioning allows the crews to pinpoint exactly where to dredge and at what depth. And then we have a hopper scow in the upper right-hand corner, which is one of the 8 that operate in the canal system. The canals is a total of 10 push boats procured over the last 5 years in support of these operations. So we're going to continue with a 15-year program, which is basically essentially going to replace all the assets on the canals except for some of the vintage assets that we are going to refresh. As one particular tug that we are going to make sure from a historical perspective stays in service and has actually remained effective as well. And being presented to you today will be in the items for your approval, a tugboat replacement program, so that over the next 5 years, the plan is to fabricate 4 tugboats for the canals. The tugs currently in service range from vintage of 1928 to 1951. And part of the John Kerr, which was transferred from NYPA to Canals, which was manufactured in 1979. That happened in 2019. That is essentially the newest vessel in their fleet today, except for some of these workboats that we just procured. So just shows you the gravity of the time frame there in terms of the condition of the boat. So always trying to keep our folks safe and making sure this is maintained.
Time for an upgrade.
Yeah.
Definitely time for an upgrade. Time to trade in the old.
Every century or so we do that.
We've gotten full value out of those investments.
They're museum ready.
Yeah,
They're museum ready.
Right.
So if there's no, maybe there's questions on there, we can go to the end, but I just want to touch on commercial operations as well. If you can go right to the next slide, please. So a lot of this has been discussed already with the other presentations, so I won't go into pouring into detail too far here, but you can see that where we're at right now in terms of our margins is that the band is narrowing due to their hedging strategy that Adam spoke about. But we're still projected to be about 8% below our target of $171 million year to date. And the fully expected value of $312 million is about 5% below the target for 329 that we projected back in September of 22. So in the range, but not as desirable as we'd like to be. But these are all factors that Adam already spoke around. You know, we do have increased hydro flows in some cases, but energy prices remain depressed. And we continue to try to narrow that down and make sure that we're stabilizing that through our hedging strategy. And again, we did talk a lot about over the past presentations around economic development. This slide just represents the scale of everything in aggregate that we talked about. So right now we have about 1,926 megawatts allocated, which represents nearly $500 million, you know, jobs that are retained and created in New York State, and $52.7 billion of additional capital committed by these companies that are getting these allocations to support these programs. So just wanted to put that up there for information so that you know where we are today. And I think we can go to the next slide. I think I'm falling behind on slides here, so bear with me.
That's fine. You can keep going, Joe. I mean, we've been through the materials, so you can just hit the highlights.
All right. So the last thing I just want to say is that we've taken an initiative to really be more crystal clear with our customers on our communications and what programs we have and what the benefit of those programs are. So the next slide just represents the value of NYPA's programs and cost savings communication strategy that we have. And we can add a little more flesh to that. But the idea is that, you know, the messaging around the transparency really with our customers about what they're receiving and what the value is really continue to build the trust between the organization and our customers. And when we're communicating with them around what value it is individually for each of those organizations, we do it with a level of transparency that allows them to ask questions and understand why there may be adjustments in different things. And we're continuing to do that. And statewide right now, we're in a very good position where our recharge to New York customers have saved over $327 million. Western New York customers saved over 120, and our senior governmental customers have saved $392 million in 2022. And a lot of these cost savings are around the surcharges and some of the other things that they get the benefit of avoiding with doing business with us in this area. And I believe that concludes my report, Chairman.
Thanks very much, Joe, for that drive-by and update. The continued work and expansion of the drone program, certainly impressive. And we appreciate the Y49 efforts will stabilize. That's a topic that comes up periodically over time or has, so some better stability there. And the fully depreciated tugs, I think we can make a short conversation out of the need to approve an upgrade and the relevant investment there. But Andrea, you going to cover that for us?
I am. Do I need to cover it?
Well, a little bit of both. I don't want to sell you short, you know, this is.
Good
moment
morning.
at the podium. I don't want to deprive, but
Thank you. I
you're,
appreciate
you're
that.
right. You've already sold. It's sold, so don't have to sell it again.
Easy peasy. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm here to present 2 items on behalf of operations. The first item is a per value contract for vessel fabrication for New York State Canals Corporation, which we've just been speaking about. We're requesting approval to award a 5-year contract with the option for 2 additional years in the amount of $35 million to Blount Builders Incorporated of Warren, Rhode Island. The Canal Corporation utilizes tugboats to support operations that support and maintain navigation along the canals, such as buoy replacement and retrieval, movement of spoils, transport of dredge pipe and equipment. In 2017, based on U.S. Coast Guard requirements and third-party assessments, the need to replace these Asian vessels was identified, and 6 of 10 tugs were removed from service. This contract aligns to our asset management strategy and the long-range vessel replacement plan that you just heard Joe Kessler speak about. And since 2017, Canal has procured 10 push boats, placed them strategically along the canal system in place of tugs or tender boats that were removed from service. The services under this contract include fabrication and delivery of 4 inland tug vessels to replace the existing vessels that are nearing the end of their useful life. A request for proposal was issued in February of 2023. 1 proposal was received in April, which was reviewed by a cross-functional committee. The evaluation criteria included cost, source of the domestic steel supply, technical and commercial requirements, relevant experience, and the ability to meet the milestones and safety records. Following an extensive evaluation, the committee recommends award to Blount Builders in Warren, Rhode Island. In 2020, Blount actually successfully fabricated and delivered a replacement tugboat for our Western Niagara region, the Breaker 2, which has been in service successfully. They have facilities and the capability of fabricating 2 tugs simultaneously, and that will support having delivery and testing of the first 2 vessels before the end of the 2025 navigation season. The remaining 2 vessels, we are targeting delivery for 2027. The funding required for these services will be budgeted in the annual budget cycle and is included in the 4-year capital plan. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Why don't you just go ahead and we'll come back and address
At the end?
any questions in total for the 2 proposals.
Perfect. Okay. The second item that I'm presenting is for a suite of on-call value contracts for Waterway infrastructure engineering services. Today, we are requesting approval to award a 5-year value contract with the option for 2 additional years in the amount of $60 million to the 8 firms you see listed on the slide. The authority currently uses on-call contracts and master service agreements to support execution of major programs and projects. And these contracts help provide flexibility to supplement our internal staff where there's resource constraints or if the expertise just does not exist. Having these consultants with the necessary experience, certifications, and the personnel available to support both NYPA and the Canal's project portfolios, it's necessary to help meet our Vision 2030 goals, which specifically highlights reimagining and revitalizing our canal system. The services under these contracts include detailed design and owner's services for our major infrastructure assets, such as dams, embankments, culverts, gates, locks. A request for proposal was also issued in February of 2023. We received 13 proposals in May, which were reviewed by a cross-functional committee. The evaluation criteria included cost, technical and commercial requirements, quality, and relevant experience. Following an extensive evaluation process, the committee recommends award to the 8 firms that are listed on the slide, and these firms have met the requirements of the RFP, have committed to meeting the supplier diversity goals as well. As is customary, with any of these on-call contracts,
Anytime specific projects or scopes is identified, we will go to a competitive mini bid process amongst the 8 vendors selected. The funding required for these services will be budgeted in the annual budget cycle, and it is included in the 4-year plan. I'll now answer questions on this as well as the other item.
Questions from anybody? This is typical in terms of how it's presented longer term, create some guardrails and operating, parameters, come back to us as needed, but otherwise gives management the flexibility to execute.
So for the 4 new trustees, this was anticipated. If you went out for RFPs between February and May, this was unexpected.
Yeah, this is really almost a
We have to do this.
request for qualifications to ensure we've got a range of qualified firms
Correct.
that can partner with us on an as-needed basis. That's estimated to cost us upwards of $60 million over the next 5 years.
5 to
So,
7 years, yes.
yeah. Okay, and again, type of material we'll cover typically in finance as we're going forward, and we'll discuss a little, more in those forums. But this is very straightforward. Customer, the tugboat, same thing, gives everybody parameters and guardrails to work within as we navigate.
Then Andrew, you said, as you decide on the many projects, then you'll go to these 8.
Right.
Yeah, it gives us the flexibility, plus it gains, they've already demonstrated they have the qualifications, that they're competitive, and they have the capability to do the type of engineering projects that are going to be put forth.
I like the way you.
Yeah, we monitor it as we go. It's typical, you see a number of initiatives come through where we're using third-party providers to support us.
And just to remind us how you hold them accountable to the diversity supplier issue, right?
So working with our strategic supply management, we set those goals at the front end. I believe for the Waterway infrastructure projects, the MWBE goals are 15%, and our veteran-owned businesses are 6%. So that's monitored with each project they do. We also, as we define the scope, we work closely with our supplier diversity group, and we make sure we understand internally whether those opportunities exist or not, because there are certain disciplines where, it's limited opportunities. So a very proactive approach combined with our supplier diversity group.
If that's sufficient, if I could have a motion to approve both of the proposals that Andrea just presented.
So
moved.
moved.
Have a second, Cecily? Very well. We had Warren, Rhode Island there. I thought maybe you'd want to jump in, Lewis, but we'll defer to Cecily on that.
For the record, I have no ties.
Only teasing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion's carried. Andrea, thank you very much. Joe, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your time in North Carolina.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, we talked earlier about Propel. Justin did. I know Phil wants to give us a little more insight or his views and perspectives on this wonderful opportunity.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees, staff. Thank you. Next slide, please. As Justin indicated, and it is about a month old as far as the news, so I do have the pleasure to present this to you and give you the good news. I know we've discussed it, internally. The New York ISO. It was actually the day that Justin and several of us were at up in the North Country celebrating the commissioning of SmartPath. Later that day, the New York ISO awarded Propel Energy New York, Propel to NYPA and New York Transco, whom we're working with. The intent of this, and for everybody's awareness, this was a competitive process to the New York ISO, their FERC Order 1000 process that Justin mentioned earlier. It's a 2-year cycle. We actually submitted proposals in October of 2021, so it was a lengthy process going through viability and sufficiency, and then the evaluation, and the team supported that throughout that process. So this is to integrate offshore wind to ensure that it doesn't get bottlenecked in Long Island, and to integrate it into the rest of the state, New York City and the rest of the state. The project is over 90 circuit miles of new underground and submarine transmission, as Justin indicated, two new submarine cables from Long Island to Westchester and another one from Long Island into the Bronx area. So in addition to integrating the offshore wind, it does provide a much more robust and resilient 345 kV system on Long Island. So it does provide benefits to the Long Island area from a reliability and resiliency, really starts to build out the 345 kV system in Long Island. And as I said, integrating the offshore wind so it can get to the market beyond Long Island. Total project costs are over $3 billion and the projected in-service date is 2030. So right now the team, NYPA as well as Transco are working. The next step will be a development agreement with the New York ISO. That's part of their standard tariff. So we're waiting to get that information from the New York ISO to begin that process. We're also working with NYPA internally on the project management and engineering side, along with Transco, just to get everything prepared, get everything ready, establishing internal team for execution, getting ready for regulatory filings for the project from a rate standpoint, as well as preparing for the Article 7 process, which is the lengthy licensing and permitting with the New York Department of Public Service. So that's where we are. We'll keep you posted on everything. I get the opportunity to be up here. This is, as Justin indicated, the top 3 projects. It was actually top 4 out of 5. So we didn't hit number 4, but we did hit number 5. So we're well prepared. The internal talent within utility operations, development, across the board, legal, finance, business services, across the board, NYPA, the technical knowledge really prepared us well, as was indicated from those top projects. It's a great team effort, and working with New York Transco, we're very excited to be advancing this project for the benefit of the state of New York and helping meet the CLCPA goals.
Yeah, no question, great validation of the skill set and the best in class team that we have here, and certainly applaud and appreciate your leadership of those efforts to get us to the starting line, and more than an exciting project and high impact opportunity for us to lead on. So
yeah, and
kudos and congratulations.
Thank you. Really establishes again NYPA transmission in the southeastern New York region. We do have some assets there, but this will really be expanding that for NYPA.
What's the status of the projects themselves, the offshore wind? And
I believe the first project has started construction. The rest are in that process, and I know NYSERDA has additional solicitations out there for offshore wind that are impending.
Okay. Any other questions for Phil or?
Mr. Chairman, just want to make a comment. This is a big deal. Being a Long Islander, this is getting the wind power when it's available into the downstream, into the communities.
Oh.
Fantastic. So just
Absolutely.
Just kudos to the entire organization. Fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Phil. Appreciate it. Well, hopefully, for your first drive around, whether it's a strategic view, whether it's risk management, the financial side of the space, the development piece, it begins to give you a feel and flavor for the scope and magnitude and depth and breadth of the work we do. A couple items before we wrap up. Kayla, oh, Kayla's coming behind us. Jesse went to get her. Sorry. I was just going to say, where's Kayla? Kayla and
We have our scouts.
yeah, exactly. So we have some special guests that we want to recognize this morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Just one more.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you very much.
All right. Sorry, Kayla.
Okay, no problem. Good morning. My name is Kyla Mensah. I lead environmental justice. And as you can see, we have some very special guests. here today with us who represent some very important stakeholders from NYPA's communities. Next slide, please. So I'd like to begin by very briefly giving you a background about the Environmental Justice Program. Our role is to leverage NYPA's expertise in energy for the benefit of the communities that host our facilities and intersect with our strategic operations. So over the last 7 years, under the leadership of Lisa Wansley, we have built a grassroots, community-informed program that really is delivered around 4 strategic pillars. The first 2 pillars are about focusing on energy education and the associated career pathways. So for example, Joe Kessler talked about the emerging drone program here at NYPA. We mirror that program. We share that information. We provide drones to the schools that host our facilities, and we have paid summer internships so that students from EJ communities work alongside NYPA drone pilots. The second 2 focus on proactive outreach with environmental justice leaders and delivering community projects. So I hope I have the opportunity to go into more detail about our programs, but today we're focused on our guests. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to earlier, workforce development is really at the heart of all our initiatives. Our goal is to ensure that students in historically underserved communities are equipped to participate in this transition to a clean energy economy. And today I want to present 2 of several workforce pipeline programs that our Environmental Justice Department leads. The first one is the Future Energy Leaders Scholarship Program. This is a $10,000 college scholarship for academically distinguished high school seniors. To date, we have supported over the last 3 years, this is the 3-year program that we just started, 30 high school students, and it is my honor to present one of our 2023 scholars, Dwight Clark, if you'd like to come up. So Dwight recently graduated from the Eagle Academy High School in Brooklyn. Not only is Dwight brilliant, he graduated with a GPA of 4.0. He also has awards in leadership, character, and mentorship. He's accompanied today by his very proud parents, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. So Dwight would just like to share a few comments about his future plans.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
My name is Dwight Clark. I currently reside in Queens, New York, and I could proudly say I'm a graduate from the Eagle Academy family. It's an honor that I stand before you guys today as not only the NYPA Energy Award recipient, but also the trustee speaker today. This fall, I plan to attend Hampton University to pursue business administration. I hope to open a business of my own one day that will afford me the opportunity to give back to my community. Whether that's through clothing, gaming, or even a bookstore, I want to give back to those in my community. With my business degree, I will have a one-of-a-kind opportunity to make a difference in inner city communities. In addition to one day owning my own business, I intend to apply the business concepts learned in college to develop mentorship programs for inner city communities that will expose them to professions in the energy sector. Many of my peers and I see energy efficient automobiles on the roads, but have no idea how they operate. Also, my fault. We see energy efficient automobiles on the road, but have no idea what goes into making energy efficient vehicles. Also, the solar panels I see on homes in my community is making it possible for homeowners to reduce their utility costs by increasing the value of their homes. The new wave of energy efficient automobiles and solar panels, to name a few, will be my new future. If I'm afforded the opportunity to educate those in my community, they will be astounded by the complexity of the systems that optimize their performance while making a good environmental impact. That's all.
You need to smile for me, though. All right. No need to be nervous. Mom and Dad, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Justin, very, very proud. Very proud.
We should know that Dwight's going to one of the great historically black
college.
colleges and universities.
August 18th, but we will leave either August 16th or 17th.
Oh, wonderful.
Perfect.
Wonderful. So how many any siblings?
Yes, his sister graduated from Oswego, so
Fantastic.
during the pandemic, but she did it. She's great.
The little brothers carrying on. Making you proud.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So our second future energy leader is from our PTech.
Sorry, Kyla, apologies.
So our second future energy leader is from our PTech program, which is a national integrated high school and college education model. And as an industry partner, NYPA supports students from 9th grade all the way to the completion of an energy-related associate degree. So over the last 3 years, we've supported nearly 400 students in year-round career exposure programs and 82 students with paid summer internships. These programs are specifically for students in environmental justice communities. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce one of our PTech summer interns, Doha Medjubi. Sorry. Doha is currently recently completed an associate degree in mechanical engineering at LaGuardia Community College. She is one of 41 summer interns that we're hosting here at NYPA this summer. And so Doha can tell us a little bit about what she's been doing this summer.
Right. Oh, okay, cool. Good morning. I just want to start by saying thank you all for having me today. So my name is Doha Medjubi, and I recently graduated from LaGuardia Community College with an associate's degree in mechanical engineering. I plan to continue my career path for my degree in bachelor's at City College's Grove School of Engineering. So this marks my second year in the PTech program, and I can generally say that this experience has been nothing short of rewarding. From the moment I joined in summer 2022 throughout the learning process, I also found myself having fun, which further drew my attention and amplified my motivation to perform my best throughout those 6 weeks. So when Peter Bailey reached out to invite me back for summer 2023, I did not hesitate to accept. This year, I'm once again involved in energy auditing. However, I am looking forward to what NYPA has planned for us this time around. The PTech program has been set up so that me and my fellow interns are given a thoughtful opportunity to achieve national certification in HVAC and lighting. I plan to take full advantage of the benefits of this program, and my goal is to utilize my certification that I earned to apply for HVAC and/or lighting training jobs, setting me up on a path of a secure, valuable professional experience. I admit I have always been on the side as to what I want to pursue in the long run, which I found pretty intimidating because time is going by pretty fast. So in high school, I was on a journey of exploration within STEM. Starting my brief involvement in robotics team and finding interest in aerospace engineering through an out-of-school extracurricular program called Civil Air Patrol. Taking sustainability and environmentalism class opened my eyes to environmental engineering, which was further reinforced by my job shadowing at Con Edison, participating in ACE mentoring program, and participating in summer internships. This internship specifically provided me with the valuable professional connections and diverse perspectives that help solidify my decision to pursue a minor in environmental engineering. The PTech internships hold immense significance for me, as not only broadened my knowledge, but also fueled my passion for engineering efficiently and substantially. Soon I will be an individual who works alongside others in a field of meaningful work. Thank you.
Where are we in the program? We're in the middle of it? Are we winding down, just starting the summer, or where are we?
I'm marked 3 weeks today.
Okay, 3 weeks today,
Yeah.
3 more to go?
3 more to go.
Excellent, excellent. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Justin and the trustees for this opportunity to do such substantial work. Thank you.
Great job. Yeah, great job. Well done. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Everybody, best of luck in school. I know you're gonna knock it out of the park. Enjoy Virginia. Yeah. Nothing but good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
We have the staff photographer, no photo ops today on this or what? Huh? Come on, Phil.
Phil is always around.
Who's filling in for Phil? There you go.
All right, guys, let's stand up, get a little closer. Go ahead, Chairman.
We gotta get a little bit of a group photo.
Go ahead, Chairman. No, Chairman, you gotta get on there. Ready?
I'm the least important. Oh, come on, you don't have to get out of there. I'll slide in the back.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, look there, look here. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Excellent.
What can I do on my phone, please?
I will get them to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Oh, we lost him. Bert, it's got a voicemail from Bert. Who is buddy Bert? Oh. Bert's waiting for a call back. Justin, you hop in the next one. All right. Okay. Consent agenda. As always, there's substantial items that we address in consent. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to peruse or review those. If anyone has any questions, happy to have the team respond. If not, I'd otherwise ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Dennis moved the second. All right, Cecily, any questions or anybody in terms of what's in the consent agenda? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Before we close, Justin, you have an acknowledgement. I've got a couple. You've got two. I've got two. You've got at least one.
I want to take this opportunity to recognize Lisa Wansley, her last board meeting here with us today. You just saw some evidence of the great work that Lisa and her team have accomplished over the last 7 years, and it's not an understatement to say that Lisa came here 7 years ago with a completely blank slate and built over that period of time the powerhouse team that you just saw. So the team will carry on the important work that you've created and the foundation that you've established. But I just want to, on behalf of your NYPA colleagues, the board, the people of New York State, to thank you for your service to the Power Authority, and we wish you the best of luck in your retirement.
I would certainly want to echo that. I've had the opportunity to work personally with Lisa on a number of projects, as I know other board members have over the years. And Lisa, you've made us proud, and I know you're very proud of the work we've done, and it's been done under your leadership and the team you've built that will more than, as Justin said, carry on. So your legacy is firmly established, and we look forward to the years ahead with the benefit of the foundation you've laid. So thank you, and enjoy the time ahead.
Thank you very much.
And I want to acknowledge, as I said up front, we have 4 new board members today. And simple math, 4 in means we've had 4 exits. A year ago, Judge Nicandri, I think it's about a year ago, stepped down, retired from our board after probably a dozen or more years of incredible service. And a fellow judge, Cecily Morris, has jumped in to fill those boots and shoes to represent the interests of the North Country. Tony Picente stepped down and stepped away probably 6 months or so ago, and Michael, I know, was appointed in connection with Tony's resignation, and we're thrilled and excited to have Michael join the team. And in connection with Lewis and Lori coming on board, Tracy McKibben and Mike Balboni stepped down and stepped away from the board. And I want to just take a couple minutes. B and Dennis, I'm sure will support me here. Two people that gave incredible service, passionate, committed service to the organization. And we all aspired to leave an organization better than we found it, whatever that may be. And that's certainly true with the two of them. Tracy was with us, I think, for about 8 years. Michael for 5 or 6. The expertise they brought, the worldly perspective, literally, they brought, whether it was in the energy space, whether it's in the finance space, whether it's in the risk management space, cyber in particular. I'm not sure what Michael's going to do, Eric. He's probably got you on speed dial anyway, but nonetheless, Tracy with her world travels and background and energy exposure and experience, invaluable resources for us as an organization, us as a board. We've got formal resolutions to acknowledge those contributions. I talked with them earlier in the week to let them know that we were giving recognition, and we'll otherwise coordinate calendars to appropriately celebrate their time with us. But I want to thank and publicly acknowledge them. They've clearly left us better than they found us 6 and 8 years ago, and we can all stand on their shoulders as we continue to march forward. So for the record, I'd ask for a round of applause for both Michael. With that, unless there's any other matters anyone has to come before us, that concludes today's agenda. We're back again together in September. Expectations are we will be on the ground in upstate New York, in Fairport and thereabouts. Good Canal's celebration, or to see up close and personal the good work that's being done. We look forward to that and more to come in terms of the events and activities surrounding that next meeting. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn and thank everyone for joining us today. So I'll move to second, a third in there. All in favor, aye. Our meeting is adjourned. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Thank you.